It's 5:35 p.m. Today is Monday, May 12th, 2025. This is the Bluff public hearing on the status of the Special Service District Bluff Cemetery. We'll start first with doing roll call of the council.
Linda Sosa. Luann Hook.
Brett Hornsby.
Ann Lepinen.
Jennifer Donnelly.
Erin Nelson serving as town manager.
So I'm going to read what the purpose of the public hearing is.
And is there any way this microphone can project to us? We're not hearing very well.
I'll try talking louder too. See if that, does that help?
For the audience.
See if we get a little feedback. Is that better? Okay. Okay. So this is a public hearing on a transfer of the San Juan County Special Service District cemetery grounds that are within the incorporated boundaries of Bluff. The purpose of the public hearing is to hear public comment on the current status of the portion of the cemetery referred to as the, quote, Bluff Cemetery, end quote, and to hear public comment on the potential transfer of that section for the control and operations from San Juan County Bluff Special Service District to the Town of Bluff. And so I'd like to acknowledge that Commissioner Sylvia Stubbs is here in the audience from the county, and Mac McDonald is here as well, the county administrator. And then we have some folks that I'm sure we'll get to hear from. One of the things that I heard today from a phone call was that there's some perception that the town is looking at the Hole in the Rock Foundation's Pioneer section of the cemetery, and that's not what this public hearing is about. So we have some maps back on the table. There are 3 entities that hold title up on the cemetery hill, but it became clear to me there was some misinformation that was out there. So if you want to take a minute, I'm going to just kind of stop the hearing for 2 or 3 minutes for folks. Oh, and for those of us who don't have that great eyes, there are maps on the back of the table, but we have the survey. The county had it surveyed so we can see where the boundary lines are of each section. And so for those of you who have been up there and are familiar with it, there's the Hole in the Rock Foundation Pioneer piece, and then there's the piece where burials have been taking place over the last however many years. And so the purpose of the hearing is to take public comment on whether the Town of Bluff is better situated at this point to manage that section. It's not managing other sections, nothing else. Nothing else is on the table. The reason for this is that when the cemetery, the Special Service District was created, 3 people were on the board. The board terms expired. They were not renewed. 2 of the people have been doing all of the work of selling the plots up there, making sure the burials take place, doing those types of things that you have to do to do operations. But their terms, because they expired, they've just been serving to fill the roles of those positions. When the town incorporated in 2018, one of the questions was, is the town going to take over the record keeping, the maintenance, the operations of that section? And so as for those of you who are aware, you know, when we first incorporated, Kelly Pearson was the county administrator. And then David Everett was the interim county administrator. And now we have Mac. And thank you. Mac and I have gone back and forth, done a lot of research on who has what title, who's doing what. And this is the point that Bluff would really like to move that Special Service District operation into the town, and for the town to have the fiscal responsibility, the management, all of the things that go with a cemetery. Again, we're not looking at the Pioneer Hole in the Rock Foundation piece. And I can see why people are concerned if that's what the rumor is. So why don't we I'm just going to take 2 minutes here for anybody who wants to look at a map. They're back there. The survey is there. The plots that we're talking about for operations are on a big sheet back there. And then, of course, Aaron has the survey up. So I'm just going to stop talking for 2 minutes, and then we'll go right back. So Craig will just stay on for 2 minutes.
Jan, could Erin just name the parcels she's showing us?
Yeah, I know it's a little small for those in the room. So the top section, so there are two top sections here, two different parcels. So the first one is Hole in the Rock. It's 0.92 acres. The middle section is also Hole in the Rock Foundation, and it is also 0.92 acres. And then the section that we're talking about today is the Bluff Cemetery District. It's this rectangle here at 1.01 acres. And so it's this bottom section that we're seeking comment on. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So are you proposing that this lower section be turned over to the bluff?
I'm going to have
Or
Aaron
just
look
the
them,
upper, the new section?
just that it's the new set, what would be called,
Not this under the direction of the special service district right now?
That's what we're talking about, of what would be turned over from San Juan County as a special service district to incorporated Town of Bluff.
so, okay, hold on, I'm going to time everybody. So, this is for public comment, it's not for a debate with the council or the public. If you'd like to make a public comment, you have 3 minutes. There's a sign-in sheet back on the table, so you can sign in. If you're here in person, sign in, please, so we know. And then for people online, if you put your name in the chat box or raise the hand icon, and then we'll go ahead and take some public comment. But right now, the current status is that the Special Service District is not functioning in the way it needs to be. The reporting to the state is not being done because we don't have an official board. The record keeping is fine. We've got records, we've got bank accounts, everything matches up. But the problem is none of the reporting and operational pieces have been done. And that's what the town is proposing to do, is to take that over from the county. Just looking at my notes.
Would that include the part where the old Pioneer Graves
No,
are?
no, it would not.
So you're talking about the part to the west and north and north?
You know, Mr. Guyman, I am horrible with direction. Is that? Yeah. Where the newer pieces, where the newer burials are, where the new ones are.
It's really hard to see that map.
That's why we have some other maps, if you, thanks. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yep. Okay. Right in the back, there's a sign-up sheet. And for those folks who have come in, if you want to make a public comment, there's a sheet back there to sign in. And then there's also a sheet to sign that you're here, so we can keep track of who all is here, even if you don't make a public comment.
So where do you sign that at?
Right back there at that table, Mr. Guyman. as soon as I have everybody seated back down, I will. Thank you. So that the map that the sketch that you're holding there, those where the burials are right now. That's what the current burials are in what's called the Bluff Cemetery part. Can you show?
Okay. Yeah, so when you drive up the cemetery, okay, on the bottom left, that's when you come up, and then that's that loop, and then you're, at the north, you're looking right into Calf Canyon there. So that's the loop, and then when you come, the new burials are to the left there.
In this section, kind of where the descriptions are.
And then if you go,
Is that where these are?
that's where those are. And then if you go south, then this,
So is the
Okay, so,
proposal to make
hold-
a new cemetery district up there, or to take over this bottom part that's already in?
Mac, do you want to describe what the Special Service District boundary is?
So
Sure.
people online can hear. Let me bring my chair. That'd be-
Oh,
Reminds me of being back in clogging or something, listening to my feet.
here, I can,
well, clawed away, that would be a.
yeah, I'll just move over.
Okay, for historical context, I think that'll help us with where we're at today. When you look at Utah code, cemeteries in the county are typically run by a special service district, and this is what consistently the county has done. So we've created special service districts for the Blanding area. We have a special service district for the cemetery in Monticello. And then the citizens approached the county back in the 1990s of here and the Historic Foundation, petitioning the county to create a special service district in Bluff. And remember, and Mayor had touched on it, this was before Bluff was incorporated that all of this started working. And so we got together, my understanding is, back in the past, a citizen, a petition group got together, signed a petition, hey county, and asked the county, will you create a special service district for the Bluff Cemetery? And it was mainly the historic portions of the cemetery, but it also would encompass and incorporate new burials into that site as well. And so in Utah code, it allows for, obviously, you can have a private cemetery amongst yourselves, amongst your family, and that's allowed. Then once it gets into public cemeteries, that's where you have either the cities at a municipal level, and the cities can restrict it to only those individuals that belong in their city can be buried at the city burial site. Here in our county, we've selected to have them as special service districts so that even me, I could be buried in Blanding Cemetery because it's under a special service district. And so we had created those years and years ago. This one actually went to a vote of the citizens here in Bluff. You had to be a resident of Bluff. And they had gone through an election process back in 2000, I believe it was. And the vote on there for the county to take it over, I think it was like 33 to 24 people. So not a lot of people voted for it. But part of the transfer to the county was the transfer of the property from one of the foundations into the cemetery district. And so that's what we're reviewing now, is what do we do? Do we keep it as a special service district, or do we transfer that ownership that the county cemetery district has over into Bluff? Ann and I have been working on this literally for 5 years, probably 6. You've been here longer. And so the mayor has struggled with just trying to get it. We've been trying to get it, I think twice now, we've advertised for board placement on there, and that hasn't been successful. The county has tried. Interesting note, whenever you create a special service district by resolution, you also have to register it with the state of Utah as an entity. When we tried to do that, the state, hey, Bluff, do you guys have a stake in it? And then it just kind of stopped at that point. And so since that point in time, membership, has dwindled in the special service district. And this is one of the things that the mayor and I have been trying to get going, is like, okay, who do we get as members and what happens to the special service district? What the mayor is proposing today, and the special service district encapsulates this whole boundary area. And so those that are on, if I'm understanding on the detailed view of this map, this is the Bluffs portion outside of the district's area. And so that's something that, just to point out that it's not within the boundaries of the special service district itself. The special service district had the Hole in the Rock Foundation's pieces included in it with this bottom portion that was under San Juan County. So when you think of organizational structure of government, special service districts are subdivisions of the counties. And so if the special service district defuncts, you don't have enough board members, then the county commissioners become, by proxy, automatically the special service district board. And so we haven't acted on that, we haven't moved on that. But the question for you today is and we had met with the mayor, a couple months ago, and knowing that this was by petition created by the citizens, to create this special service district, we really felt that the need was to question and have that answered by our citizens. Instead of making it, in our offices at the county or here at the town, it's like, let's get back to the people and see knowing that it's been defunct for multiple, 5, 6 years, maybe longer.
20.
20 years.
20.
And so it's like, do we ask the citizens and make sure that they want it in a special service district still? Or kind of like the mayor has mentioned, would it be better managed at a local level by the town of Bluff? And the Bluff would be, they would take over the special service district, not as an entity, they would have to form their own entity. I don't think towns can have special service districts, maybe they can, but
I think they can.
they would have to figure out that structure of the transfer. Then the county would take that bottom piece, that bottom property of the historic portion, and then transfer that over. It doesn't mean that the Hole in the Rock Foundation would be transferred over, just the county's portion that the county has ownership rights over. Does that help you out? It kind of gives you a historical context of how we got here. I think overall, we need to do something. You know, what the mayor's experienced here is, you know, they had a couple of years ago, they had a fire, you know, that took place up on this hill or this bluff. It ran through both their side of the property, but it also ran onto the historic side. Nobody is really taking care of it. And so we need to get it to a place where we have an appropriate sexton. Now, we've always worked with the two individuals here in Bluff to kind of oversee it, but really, nobody's really overseen it. And we either need to get it somehow to the point within the county that you have a named sexton. When I look at like Blanding Cemetery and Monticello Cemetery, you have beautification going on. Even today, as I drove by Blanding Cemetery, there were people out there taking care of Memorial Day, you know, or Mother's Day, flowers that have been placed on headstones. There's people taking care of it. We really need to get it to a place where, even historic by nature, that you have somebody up there taking care of the weeds, that if fires do break out around the area, that they don't come into the cemetery, that you have just kind of a better care and control of where individuals are being buried. And that was one of the things that we experienced this last year was there was an individual placed in the wrong place. And so then it's, okay, what do we do? You know, when you get burials that take place where somebody else is called for and nobody's really managing an oversight of that, then you run into these problems. And so we either need to transfer or keep and formalize, get it formalized, so that in the end, you know, when you think of you know, I try to project and predict in the future, what am I going to have on my headstone? You know, some of us just want rest in peace. Well, if a fire comes through and burns your area, it's not very peaceful. And so we need to be more honorable in taking care of those deceased, especially if it's family members, by having it orderly and organized so that we can do it justice. You know, there's been a lot of opportunities for grants, historical grants that we could have gone for, you know, for fencing or for markers. You know, it would be nice to have the markers and things like that for those loved ones that are buried there so that they know where they're at for the county side of it. Ours is getting to a place where, by law, each of these plots are supposed to be recorded in the county's recorder office. You know, I was speaking earlier before this meeting, is like the county, we're working just to get that, just to find where your relatives are buried so that we can have that properly plotted and properly recorded, so that at the end of the day, for time and in perpetuity, that this is recorded and people know where their loved ones are buried. It shouldn't be you go to the site and it's a guessing game because the gravestone or the marker that they had is so worn down and beaten that you can't tell whose relatives are buried there. And so we've got to just do a better way of taking care of those loved ones that are in these cemeteries.
Mark, I have a question because this map, these plots are over here.
Are outside of this
Yeah, so
district,
who
yes,
owns
yep.
that? Remind us who owns that?
I looked on the ownership, that's a different foundation.
Isn't it? It's Southwest Foundation.
Southwest
Yeah,
Foundation.
Southwest Foundation. Yeah, so let's hold everything right now and get the public comment, because the point of the public hearing is to hear what people want. It's not for us to make decisions tonight.
But
or-
is it not involved? Is that piece not involved? Just,
It would be, okay, so that's a hypothetical, like it would be involved if the Town of Bluff is going to do the oversight. Southwest Heritage would be, they've already committed to doing the transfers. There's some other legal glitches, like the piece that Mac alluded to, where you take the vote, you have a resolution, it goes to the lieutenant governor. There's a step that's been missing, and the step is the certificate from the lieutenant governor's office, I believe. And so there's not, kind of the bottom line is, this is a cleanup of a huge mess. I'll just call it like it is. It has functioned, which is great, because Robin Bond and Bill Davis and the community have made it function. But this is not the way a cemetery should be handled. And so the question for the public is, what do you want to see happen? And then it'll be between the county and the town again. It could be that the town just throws up its hands and says, yeah, let somebody else deal with it.
well, one other clarifying question then, what the special service district would be the south section and the side section, but not the two. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Well, that's,
So the cemetery district encompasses all three of those properties. And so the one on the outside that's not shown in this map, that one is already under the town, kind of?
no,
Well,
that's,
Will-
and
He
that's,
kind of did his own. Instead of putting bodies here, they decided to place them on his own property.
Okay, so but just for clarifying for everybody who's asking these questions, the cemetery district that we would do as a town would incorporate these three plus the one that doesn't show up.
so the hope would be, since the,
And there's a possibility you can speak in
no,
the
yeah,
mic, we can't hear you.
You can't hear me?
We can hear you.
you move the mic back
Okay.
this way. So the hope,
Bring it right over.
yeah, thank you. The hope would be, Luann, is to get, you still can't hear?
There you go. Look at them, I'll listen.
Okay. So after we get the public comment, the hope would be to sit down with all of the entities involved and figure out who's doing what. So it's not the town's intent, and I've never heard the town express, anyone in the town express that we want to take over the hole in the rock foundation piece. It's what do we do? We've got a special service district where we had a burial that went in a direction it shouldn't have. And that's indicative of the fact that we don't have a board that's functioning. So we want to hear everyone's comments. Then we can talk between the entities and figure out what a plan is or is not. And if it's not going to be that the town has oversight, that's a decision that can be made. It could be that the county continues to have a special service district, but then, quite honestly, the county's gonna have to step up and figure out their piece of it. And then there's the hole in the rock. This is not an easy, it's a puzzle, you know? So let's hear from folks about what your thoughts are. I'm assuming everyone here who's going to make a public comment has seen what we're talking about on the ground. So.
And Southwest Heritage, I was part of that group. It was, so, in regard to, they were thinking of building some houses up there on top hill. And, they're not just a cemetery, there's the great house and the great
Right.
Kiva. This is all part of that complex.
Yes.
I was not sure, does the Southwest Heritage still own part of the cemetery? And,
Did-
so it seems to me that there ought to be a group of interested. There's many graves up there, probably, I don't know, I was looking there, there's probably over 200.
Let me interrupt you for a second. So, you're talking loud enough for me to hear. Can everybody hear Mr. Guyman? So, Ms.
We really need it into
Yeah,
the mic.
and then if you would go up there and identify who you are and where you live, and then you have 3 minutes, and then we'll take the next person, and just, let's walk through this. So, thank you.
My name is Gary Guyman. I believe what we need to do is something that would work for everybody. And so it really boils down that many of you have ancestors or loved ones up there. Myself, my grandfather married a Rolly. This great-grandmother, younger brother died when he was 2.5 years old, a Rolly boy and from the measles, and they didn't want to bury him over by the cottonwood because they had buried a brother Bathus over there, and the crick was coming in close to taking out his grave, and so I'm sure there were other burials of indigenous people up there already that are not marked. However, they buried this young boy up there, one of the first graves there, and I'm not sure if the family's ever really located that, but nevertheless, the little boy's burial is there. You know, I was at your father's funeral, a very sacred moment, and so I think there's some interest that folks that are descendants or folks that have an interest in that should have opportunity to be on a board or a committee or something where you all work together to have it work out well. And so that's all I'm suggesting is that I think where City of Bluff, the San Juan, or Southwest Heritage Foundation, the Hole in the Rock Foundation, et cetera, would be well served if everybody worked together and helped it remain a beautiful, protected place.
Then I was just handed the public comments sign-up sheet, so Jed Lyman, you're next.
My name is Jed Lyman, and I'm here representing me and my family and the Hole in the Rock Foundation. I'm a board member on the Hole in the Rock Foundation. We are concerned about the lack of order that's been going on at the cemetery for some time. We have had any number of graves put in on our property without anyone ever asking permission. I'm aware of one person who asked permission in recent years, and that's the only one that I'm aware of personally. And we think we need to get some control over that. But also, I would personally, and the Hole in the Rock Foundation would be opposed to turning over this existing cemetery district to the people of Bluff. I think that's a function that the county ought to maintain, that district ought to be overseen, what's the right word, by the county, because there's a lot of us who don't live in Bluff who have ancestors right there. I do, for one, and my wife does. And we would like to have the opportunity to be a part of those decisions. So I would be opposed to that. I would be totally in favor of the town of Bluff creating their own cemetery up on that northwest corner that you're talking about, getting some land from the Western Heritage Foundation and controlling and maintaining that. I think that would be very appropriate. I think it would be inappropriate for the city or town of Bluff to take over the existing cemetery district because those folks who are there represent a lot more than just the people in Bluff. And so that's my thought is we're really talking about two different things here. One of them is the existing cemetery district. The other is the possible creation of a new cemetery and maybe a new cemetery district that would be over the oversight would rest in the Town of Bluff. Does that make sense to anybody? That's what I'm thinking that ought to happen, is this one ought to be left as is, a new one created for the Town of Bluff to create or to maintain oversight. The new section, I don't know if that land's available from the Western Heritage Foundation or not, but if it is, that would be ideal to give the city of Bluff, the Town of Bluff, some of that land, get them to obtain that land and create a new section that doesn't interfere with the existing historical cemetery.
One comment.
No, Mr. Guyman? Yeah.
Anyway, that's what I have to say, is we would be in favor of the Town of Bluff creating a new cemetery. If that means a new cemetery district, then that would be fine. I would be opposed, and the foundation would be opposed to turning over the existing cemetery special service district to just the people of Bluff.
Next person would be, thank you, would be Vint DeGraw.
Howdy, my name is Vint DeGraw. I live in Monticello. I've lived there most of my life, not all my life. I've had the opportunity the last couple of years to get to know Bluff Cemetery a lot more than I did as a kid. I've visited the cemetery many times. I have many ancestors that are there, and I always loved going up there. The last year I've had the opportunity to work with Mayor Lebanon quite a lot and learning about the cemetery. Was doing some research on who owns what properties and who is managing what properties. I know a lot of the puzzle pieces. The one thing I haven't heard that I'd like to bring up relates to the historical section of the cemetery. I believe that there are existing legitimate claims for burial in the current historical sections of the cemetery, whether they're in the Special Service District or whether they are in the area the Hole in the Rock Foundation owns. Regardless of where they're at, I think there are legitimate claims for burial still there. We have been unable, at least at this point, to discover a map as to who owns what has been paid for. And you go up to the cemetery, you can see there appear to be family plots. Are there descendants of those families that still have expectations to be buried in that cemetery? Technically, we don't know. The suspicion is there are. So it would not be appropriate to close that cemetery if there are still ownership claims to be buried there. However, whatever structure is used to manage the cemetery or cemeteries, I'm not really advocating either way. Those claims need to be researched and discovered and mapped out so that those families who do have legitimate ownership claims can bury someone there. One of the laws with the state that I discovered is that there is, if I remember correctly, an 80 or an 85-year rule that if ownership of a property, specifically in the cemetery, has not been used and the owner of that property cannot be found within an 80 to 85-year period, that property can then be reassumed by the governing board, and a decision can be made to either not use it or to sell it. That would be a decision for whoever's going to manage that property. But that opens up some possibilities in the historical section that I'm not sure everyone's aware are available currently. I personally would love to be involved in helping with some of that research. I really kind of enjoy that kind of thing. And again, I have a very vested interest because I have a lot of ancestors in the historical section of the Bluff Cemetery. I wish you well because this is a very big puzzle.
Thank you. Next would be Nancy Kimmerly.
Okay, I'm Nancy Kimmerly. I live in Blanding. My husband's family's Hole in the Rock people, and I'm currently the president of the San Juan County Historical Commission Preservation. So the Bluff Cemetery is part of the National Historic Registry. It's on the register. Parts of Bluff and the whole cemetery district. And I was in a meeting this week, and being this designation is more honorary than protective. So still anything can be done with it. And then I think I sent in a question, what outcome do you want and what is your concern? And so what I'm hearing here is the concern is you need a place to bury people, and we need to decide who's taking care of this current cemetery. So to me, that's the concerns we need to address. And so because that lower section has many pioneer graves in it and others, and I also told the story, there's a Bill Ball who was a foreman for the LC Ranch, and he was murdered. He was murdered, and then he was buried there, and there's no record of him. And I'm sure there's others, which we're talking about. There's no records of who's buried there. There's no records. And I know Matt had talked to me one time about this is a project that the Historical Commission could do. We're kind of in the middle of a few, but this does need to be addressed. It would be an interesting project, all the burials and where they are. And so then my question was, as we're putting this on, still understanding these burials are not on this map, correct? They're kind of north and west? Okay. Because looking at the district down here, if you go to the east, Letty Jones Heritage Foundation owns the next section. It's like you're still kind of landlocked with who can be buried where. And I wonder if some kind of trade or accommodation could be done so that that parking lot area, it doesn't look like there's many burials up there, if that could be a common ground, and if the Hole in the Rock Foundation could take the pioneer part and then do a project to identify, and then Bluff could expand for burials going east. Anyway, that's just trying to look at what is the problem, and it seems like that might help. And so I'm understanding that there's been no sexton, there's been no care, there's been no maps.
Okay, there are maps, and there is a sexton, but he's volunteer, there's no board. There's no valid operational board.
So that's a great concern to take care of. Thanks.
Thank you. And then Marcia Hadenfeld.
My name is Marcia Haydenfeld. I'm from here in Bluff, and I wasn't going to come, and then I decided I better know what's going on, and I'm really glad I did because I want to represent the new Bluff and say we are admirers of the historic aspect of this cemetery. I've guided up there. I've taken friends and family up there. We walk your family's plots and tell stories or make them up about what happened. I used to have a friend come to town with her little girl, and her little girl loved going up there and putting flowers on all the children's graves. The history of this place is very important. There's no denying that. But those of us who live here now want to understand that we have a place here too. So my husband and I have already bought our plot, although tell Robin my name is spelled wrong. And we want to be part of this community in perpetuity as well. Our daughter's here, maybe she'll join us. So all I'd like to see is that this community continues, as has been mentioned, to work together to make this happen. I personally would recommend that the town does take over the actual working aspect of it, and perhaps there is a cutout of space of the historical cemetery. I don't know that, because sometimes then you get who's taking care of what, and a whole picture is better. But it sounds like there's a lot of work to do for the land itself to be correctly assigned. I would like to see the town in charge. I think we have a future of new and old being up there together, but under one control, not ignoring the historic significance of where we are. But someday will be history too.
That concludes the list from the public sign-up. Are there people online, Aaron? Oh, yes. Sure, can I just have you, Cheryl, come up and sign this so that we've got a record? Thank you.
So my name is Cheryl Bowers, and I am also from Blanding, and I am representing my family, of course. I'm one who has grandparents who are buried in the historical side, and then I also have my parents, my mom and dad, have their plots right here on this list. So can I just clarify real quick, where is this? This is where my parents' plots are, right here. So where is this?
It's right here.
Okay, so it's not that bottom portion.
No.
It's actually not on the map at all. And who owns this portion, or is this the Bluff Cemetery District?
That's
The Southwest Heritage.
Southwest Heritage. So they have been the ones to sell these plots to people.
No, okay, so this is where it gets murky, and normally I wouldn't answer the question, but this is part of the
And as a point
Confusion.
of order, we're in public hearing, and that is a time where you can have some back and forth discussion.
I understand that, but we don't usually do that. But here's the situation. The board that was appointed, 3 members, in 2001, I believe, 2002, they operated for 2 or 3 years. That was their term, and I can't recall if it's 2 or 3. Their terms expired. One of the persons passed away. So you had 2 people left who have continued to do the job,
Okay.
but they are not an official board. The records have been maintained, money collected for the sale of the plots by one of the 2 people, put into an appropriate bank account, everything matches up. The map that you're holding, we've had 2 people from town do walkthroughs and make sure everything matched up before we did this public hearing. So what you're looking at is an accurate map of who is where or who has purchased in that section.
And Bluff City's been managing that, or some small board?
No, the two people who are.
Just 2 people?
The 2 people who were not, that were on the original board, who are not board members because their terms expired.
Okay.
But that's what Mac walked into, was those board,
Yeah.
the members had never been reappointed, and there was no, up until Mac, any real process for how things were managed here.
And let me say too, this is something that's been needed to be done for a long time, so I appreciate this discussion. I'm glad I came and I got to hear what actually is happening and the reasons behind it, and it needs some work. I mean, it's always been our family and everybody else probably who's here, who comes once a year and cleans it and takes care of it. So I think this is great, and it needs to be handled. I would agree with Mr. Lyman that I think that the historical portion, and even though my parents are in this portion, Bluff City needs to also have, a beautiful cemetery for those who have come here after. And I think there needs to be a place for that, but I would recommend that this portion stay. That's hard to do because then the county has to stay involved and the city has to be involved. And I get that that's not an easy thing to do. I'm wondering if the San Juan Hole in the Rock Foundation could take the top, could take this piece, and the Hole in the Rock Foundation could be in charge of this portion, and then Bluff City could manage an actual section that's for the city of Bluff, including this. I think that's okay too, where my parents will be buried. Does the Bluff Special Service District accept or have property taxes that come in? No.
They never enacted a tax.
And maybe because it's not been registered, but it would be something to definitely consider.
They could.
I would do it, but anyway, that would just be my recommendation, to leave this. I think we have concerns about, just as being here and being a resident from here and having your grandparents and your parents all grow up here in Bluff, that was me, and loving this place as much as I love Blanding, I want to see this history preserved, and I personally think it's beautiful too, just the way it is. So I'm one of those people, but I do think work can be done in certain sections. But it is a little scary, just to be honest, to just turn that over to Bluff City when there are not a lot of residents left here. As Jed Lyman said, that's nothing against the residents here. They're just the people have moved on. The families have moved to Blanding or Monticello or other places within the county. I'd like to see either the county retain control of that or the San Juan Foundation, but I do think that Bluff should have a cemetery as well. So that's my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bowers. Anyone online?
The chat box has been open. I don't show that anyone has raised their hand or put their name in the chat box. I don't show that anyone has raised their hand or put their name in the chat box for an online comment. It has been open this entire meeting, but I don't show anyone right now.
Could I just ask whether we could make another comment? I have some history of Southwest Heritage Foundation with Skip Langley, who started that, is now deceased. But have you researched Southwest Heritage? Is their board still going on at all? So I think Winston and I and
Yeah.
are the only ones I know of that are still alive of that group. I myself would recommend that the proposal that Mr. Lyman and the others have sent the historic part of letting the people of the Hole in the Rock Foundation have an active part of overseeing that to make sure it's kept historical and beautiful. I think we all want to work with Bluff and make sure that your wants and needs are taken care of too. And so if that part, haven't really looked to see how much space there is for how many graves yet are up on that hill. Has anybody surveyed that out and see how many future burials can be put towards the north and west part of that?
So part of the conversations that I've,
Could you speak up?
so it's harder for me because the microphone's away. So part of the conversations that I've been having with MAC and the state is there are some grants that are open right now to be able to do some surveying and digitalization and marking out surveys. So that's part of why we're having this public hearing, is to get a feel for what people want, so that I can perhaps get a grant into the state by the end of the month to say, we have a need here, whatever that need looks like, and can we get some funds to help fill that need? That's part of the impetus. And okay, so Cheryl, I'm gonna tell you, we don't usually do this, so I'm just gonna give everybody a free-for-all pass for the next 10 minutes.
I'm so sorry.
Cheryl, you get 1 minute.
Maybe I took my 3 minutes, I don't know. But again, this is Cheryl Bowers again. I just have to say one thing that my mom will kill me if I don't. She's in Europe today, otherwise she would be here. But she will come down very, very hard if anyone touches her plot. And I just want you to know why. She played in the water hole south of that plot that she's in, and she wanted to be buried overlooking that water hole as a child for years and years and years when they were dirt poor and had nothing. That's the one thing they could go do. And so I think it's important to have that background in history, that we don't want what's there to be changed. We don't want the plots that have been purchased. I'm sure you're not planning to do that. I just think it's important to say it out loud, that those plots that have been purchased are very important to those that have them, and there's reasons for that. So that's it. Thank you.
All right, so since I opened it up to let both Mr. Guyman and Ms. Bowers have another word, is there anybody who wants to say anything further? You each would have a minute, and then we're going to adjourn this. I do want to say, the reason we're here is Mac and I have felt like this is really an important conversation. And I'm out of office come January 6th. I don't know who's going to have the interest to drag this on for another 7 years, but I'd like to have us keep working on this to get it wrapped up, whatever that looks like. So if anyone has something they haven't already said,
I just asked a question when you talked about the grant.
yeah, can you go up to the microphone so that we can all hear you? And introduce yourself, Commissioner. Thank you.
I'm Commissioner Sylvia Stubbs, and I just have a question regarding the grant. Can it be a partnership where, instead of just being, so it can allow for the bottom portion to be able to do the same study that you're trying to do with the rest? And I think if we can work in a partnership, that will allow the people that have the interest in the bottom part to fulfill the same thing that you're trying to fulfill while they're trying to figure out what to do. And one more comment, as I see this, it's in a corner far away from the other area, so it seems like it makes sense to me to let this corner, since it's away from the other area that's going to be the Bluff Cemetery. It seemed to me it makes sense to stay in the bottom part. If it was at that part, it would be easy to annex that to the Bluff Cemetery, be in the bottom. I don't know, just a comment. I don't have ancestry or anything there. I'm just trying to figure out how we can manage this in a manner that everybody is a win-win situation. And so as you guys look into the grant, if we somehow, whatever organization is going to manage the bottom, if there's anybody interested, there can be a partnership in the grant where they can get some funds to survey the area, and they will be in compliance with whatever the state is requiring. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to go up to the microphone?
I do have an online comment after him. I have an online comment after him.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Mark Bond. I'm a resident of Bluff. And I promised my wife that I wouldn't get up and say anything. So here I am. But we've all, she and I have both been involved in the cemetery district, as it were, since it was started. Not since the first burials were put in, but since the actual lines were drawn on the ground, so to speak. Figure. But anyway, I want to say that it just makes sense to me. I've been responsible for setting out the grave sites when somebody needed to be buried since it began. And we have never, I'm here to tell you, done anything in the section to the right that shows on this map, whether down below or up above. That has always been the representatives probably, I always assumed it was, since they got established, the fort that was looking at that, but it's certainly been the families that were buried that were doing that. And I just want to say that in terms of room, you've still got room in that section of the map, and we've got lots of room in our section of the map. It makes sense to me. Oh, one other thing, this bottom part of this map right here, which is Southwest Heritage Foundation, I've been in contact with at least, well, one of the remaining people at Southwest Heritage. I haven't talked with anybody else. I've talked with Bill. And he, at least, is totally in favor of that going to, basically to the fort, and you guys taking care of that and doing what you need to do there. And we will take care of everything to the west in what we consider the new portion of the cemetery. And yes, there will be probably, you can't talk about fairly recent in terms of burials in Bluff, because we just don't have that many burials in Bluff. And hopefully we will continue on that run, not having a lot of burials. But it's not going to work out that way. But there will come a time when people from older families who have people in the older section now will have to be buried, and they'll have to be buried, if they want to be buried in Bluff, they're going to have to be buried away from the older part, because it's just going to fill up. That's all there is to it. So I don't think that there should be any, there will not be any, from our point of view, be any problem with those burials taking place in the new section. And the new section can be, if you think about the ground surface, it doesn't show up on these maps, but you can go a long way to the west. That's all Southwest Heritage Foundation until you hit the fence line. But I'd be willing to bet that the Southwest Heritage Foundation is not going to be opposed to portions of that becoming more cemetery added on to the new part that's there now. I mean, it's, so anyway, that's basically what I have to say. And I don't think that, frankly, responding to this lady here, I don't really think that a partnership is going to go quite well, because you have two different philosophies going on here. The general Bluff, people of Bluff, and the fort. It's not necessarily a battle, but it is different philosophies. So I think that they should be separated.
So your 3 minutes are up. So-
Goodbye. Thank you.
And we have one online comment.
Yes, Melissa Eggy, go ahead.
Thanks, just want to check how's the audio?
Your audio is good, thank you.
Great, so much. This is Melissa Eggy, and I stay here in Bluff, and I just wanted to first thank the folks for having the hearing and giving us a chance to speak, and Mayor Lefferts for the opportunity to speak after the official 3 minutes. So here's my thought in listening. First, I think this is the opportunity for us, whoever is willing, to support those who are willing, to put in the time. It is such an honor to have community members and county residents who want to put in their time, their effort, their expertise to make good things happen. The best that we can ever hope for is that when we've left this earth, the people who remain continue to take care of the things that we care about. Collectively, I think that we all have something similar in mind here, although we might disguise it through politics or some other motive. But I do think this is an opportunity for us as one residents, those values, all of us. I'll echo the person who said that this is a puzzle, and I'll say thank you for acknowledging that jurisdiction that exists in naming all of the ways that these land statuses have to figure out their ways to work together. The ultimate outcome here is that everybody has a safe and peaceful place to rest. And I truly hope and I trust that the people who want to work on this are people who show up with that kind of philosophy. And so I support enthusiastically. Thank you.
And that was the last one online, or the only one?
So I just have one question, mostly to Mac, I believe, is can the Hole in the Rock Foundation manage a cemetery under the state rules and things? Are they public, are they private, or?
If you declared it like a historical, I'll have to look at it to see.
It has been.
They have been?
I
The
think so.
historic? Yeah, I'm not quite sure.
They're on the state register for the,
Into the
in the
mic.
cemetery.
Sorry.
Yeah. They, as I understand it from Amy Berry at the state, that section is on the state registry for a cemetery.
So we could have three up there, we could have a county and Hole in the Rock and a town
Yeah.
theoretically.
Right, and that's the purpose of getting all the public comments, so then we can figure out what the next step is. Is it to have a committee, as has been suggested, to work on it? Is it to, fire me and Mac and let somebody else sort it out? I mean, that's the purpose of this, and that's a good question. It's something we've bounced around, but we need to do something before something goes sadly much more wrong with wrong burials, regardless of what we're talking about. I think that's pretty much it. It is, do you have anything further, Mac, that you want to add? It is 6:40, so we will adjourn. Is it 7? Oh.
They already gave you an extra
No,
time.
you can talk offline to
Stay
either,
tuned.
to one of us.
Nothing's decided.
Thank you, Mac.
So
No.
nothing's decided tonight.
I realize that,
motion?
Regarding the Southwest Heritage,
Is there a second? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
all these comments should be considered.
Unanimous. We're adjourned. Thank you. Thank everybody for coming. We've got a lot of good